Hi guys, this is Paula. I wanted to take you on a tour of an area in my yard that turned out to be a spring. So I noticed when we were having our pool dug that on the right side of my yard it was totally damp and wet. Now this is after 3 days of no watering and no raining in my yard. You can see that they had brought in a bunch of sand because of the pool area, which is just to the north side of my yard from this. But this whole area right next to my fence line is completely brown and damp at all times. Now, this is right next to my pool, as I said, and here you can see my pool. So I did not want to have a lot of water right there. I saw that as kind of a little bit of a threat to my house and to undermine my pool. And really, once I started digging, the very wet area is all the way back along the side of my house. So between my house and my pool deck, it's only an area of 17 feet. And I wanted to plant a lot of plants in this area just so that I could have a lot of privacy from my neighbors so that my pool would be more private. So I started digging holes and I found that the water was only about 6 inches below the surface. And here you can see that, look at the sand. It's a nice, rich black color. So this water, I think instead of a spring coming up from an aquifer, it's probably somehow maybe yard runoff from the whole area as it moves toward the lake. So at this point, I asked my husband, "Hey babe, I need you to help me dig holes." And he was all for it, even though about a month later, he had rotator cuff surgery. He had to have both of his rotator cuffs replaced. So repaired. Turns out what we did was dig holes. And because I have the chickens in my yard, I figured it would be a good idea to have a place where they will always have water. And I also thought, well, this will be kind of nice for the chickens because I could stock it with little minnows. The minnows the chickens ate in about 5 minutes, but because it's an open water source, I ended up having it filled with tadpoles. And I don't have to restock those tadpoles. The tadpoles are constantly restocked by the little frogs in the area that love this pond. So now after it rains, I constantly see my girls going in there and just eating tadpoles one after another. So here you can see my fig garden just on the west side of where the pond is. And the reason I really noticed this area is because my fig trees kept just looking totally miserable, and I had planted them right where their roots were probably just soaking. So after I dug the hole, but before I put the pond liner down, it rained. And while it was raining, this water was just completely pouring out. But this is actually a view of after it stopped raining. So as the rest of my neighborhood kind of drains toward the lake, this pond is just completely wet. So you can really see the water just pours down. This is after it stopped raining a good 30 minutes. And I still have water just pouring out of this hole. You can really notice how I'm showing you, kind of zooming in here, how fast the water's going. And I actually have this a little bit slow-mo because I was jerking the camera around so much. But that's how much water was pouring out of this area. So you can see if I didn't move the water away from my house, I could really run the risk of having a flood or undermining my pool deck. So I decided, well, you know what? Instead of just planting in this area, I'm going to go ahead and get some black pond liner. And I ordered that off the internet, and I cut it up so that I could just move this water quickly away from my house down toward the lake, but only because I was going to plant a whole huge banana garden. And here's when I put the pond liner in for the first time, the water just poured over. It was amazing. After a little while, the water slowed, but I continuously have water pouring out of that hole. So it is a seep or a spring or just some type of runoff that moves water from my neighborhood down to my lake. So because I have a downspout on my pool here, I decided to attach that area in also. That way it wouldn't just pour and undermine my pool. And so here's a picture of during a rain, how much water is moved away from my house. That's super important for me. And I went around and started collecting rocks. I looked all over the Facebook Marketplace and let it go. Some people were giving those rocks away for free, but a lot of times I paid $50 for, I'm talking a whole truckload of rocks. It's very expensive to get rock in Florida because we just don't have rock except for down in the Keys. And I ended up having to buy, I didn't want to ship rock in. I had to go buy it from just various people. Here next to my downspout, I went ahead and piled the rocks up so that I could have almost a waterfall feature. And it is so nice to listen to this waterfall while I'm sitting on my pool deck underneath the rooftop, and I have a swing there and I can just relax and watch it pouring down. So this is what the water looks like while it's raining, and this is what I get to hear. It's so pretty. And you can see how much water I'm moving away from my house down into this little channel. I wish I could just sit out there and watch it. So after we started putting the rocks down, this is about what it looked like. It was a little bit of a mess. It hadn't grown up yet, but it was starting to get pretty. You can tell it's a little bit tropical. You can see how I planted palms all along the back. Those palms were going to take a while to grow, so I actually ended up planting a lot of sugarcane in addition to the palms. And the sugarcane just gives me instant privacy. But at this point, I'm just about to take the sugarcane out because the palms have filled in so nicely. So here are some of the rocks. I tried to do a rock garden effect, but my chickens do not allow that. They immediately want to dig up every bit of the mulch and kick it onto the stream bed. So I didn't end up getting to have, you know, the rock garden stream look that I wanted, but that's okay. The chickens are perfectly happy. I love this little pond area. The chickens, it's only about maybe 4 or 5 inches deep, and the chickens stand in it and they catch their bugs. They love to catch those, the water bugs that are swimming around in it. Here you can see the palms all along the edge of my fence line, and I tried to plant all along the back a variety of plants in between so that I could have privacy along the fence. I definitely needed to pile those rocks up on the side because it just keeps the mess from, it really keeps the dirt from falling in and just filling it back in. This actually helped my orange tree right here. You can see it on the side of the shot. It helped it because that poor orange tree was just sitting in a pond of water, and really orange trees, they like sandy soil. They don't want to be in a deep pond. So all along here, I decided to go with a lot of plants that are water loving. So canna lilies love water. And I planted them actually inside the pond. In the background, you can actually see I have rocks up the side of the bed. And then I planted along the side of that bed coleus. So I just shoved them into the side because that whole area is super wet. Now I do love how the breeze sounds when this whole area is, at this point, it's the palms all along the side. They make a beautiful sound while the wind is blowing. And you can really see how the water is moved down all the way down to what is now my banana garden. If you look all the way down my yard, it's kind of hard to in this shot, but at some point look all the way down my yard and you can see way down at the very end near the lake, I have planted bananas. Bananas love water. So when this water comes down there and then just immediately sinks into the sandy soil, but I have it really mulched heavily, they are so happy. I've never seen bananas grow so fast. It's just really beautiful. At this point, I went and got some gravel, and I just put the gravel down over the pond liner, and that really just keeps the pond liner from getting damaged from the chickens' feet, because they love to stand on the pond liner and scratch at it looking for bugs. I laid bigger rocks on top of that. Now this has been, because I mulched this whole area, the girls then kick mulch onto that, but that's fine with me. I don't mind mulch being there. The water is still not soaking in right at that spot. Now here you can really see how I laid the rocks up the side of that really dark dirt. And I just was able to use a pencil and then I poked a hole with a pencil, and then I actually poked the coleus right into the side, and now I have a huge bed of coleus along that, which is just so beautiful. Then I started deciding, okay, I need evening lighting, so I put evening lighting there, and these are all just solar lights. And I planted some pretty plants that are topiaries, and I get out there and I trim them up. Right now they're kind of overgrown, but back in the day they used to look like that little topiary. So at this point my pond is really pretty much done. I'm just waiting for the plants to kind of grow larger. Here they're starting to really bloom and come into their own. You can see all the plants are really 2 and 3 times their original size. And I've started mulching. You can see all the mulch along the side. This is really before the little ladies went to work completely on it. So it's completely mulched at this point. You can see shadow in the background. My plants are starting to grow up. They're starting to bloom. They're looking pretty happy. I was watering them when they first got planted, but it took me about maybe a month to realize none of these plants needed any water. Even if they were not right inside, right next to the black plastic pond liner, nothing on that whole side of my yard gets any watering. And it's all very happy and really overgrowing. Here you can see the canna lilies are really starting to bloom. The canna lilies on that side of my yard are now about probably 6 to 8 feet tall. I regularly cut those and bring them into my house for flower cuttings. They don't last long, but I have so many of them, I don't really need them to last long. It's just a pretty area. And you can see my little fat chickens right now here. So when I have my meat birds, they love to walk around this whole area. We are right next to them also. We have some chairs right at the end of the pond area, and the little meat birds love to just hang out. Here's my baby boy, just enjoying his side yard. Now you can see the canna lilies are about, oh, they're probably 4 feet tall, and everything's starting to fill in. I'm actually doing some chop and drop at this point. The little ladies have filled in the stream for the most part with mulch, but it's perfectly fine with me. Here's my little chickens when they love to hang out in that area. They just loved it. They would sit there underneath the bushes in the shade. They felt safe there. Of course, we were always right nearby. Here's when I let my little meat birds take in a nap. He would hike his little leg out. I promise you, this is not a dead chicken. Look at that little baby. Oh, they just loved laying in the grass along there. The grass was slightly damp all the time. You can even see that I have a lot of dollar weed growing in that area because it's just so wet. Even with me using that pond liner to direct water away from there, the whole area is super wet. And my chickens absolutely love to eat duckweed. Well, thanks so much for coming along on the tour with me. Take care. Bye-bye.